Hey guys, it's Mathil here once again, and 3 months has been up, and you know what that means? Another new league from Path of Exile. Probably the only good thing going on around here at the moment. And I'm going to delve right into it and go over what the trailer entails, and then a bit of the Ziggity video, as well as my impressions of the league. So this time around we are entering the Harvest League, which is apparently a build revolved largely around the concept of farming. So it's going to be a bit of a step back from Delirium, and it's going to be kind of not as go go go, which is exactly what I want, a big change of pace, and just collect a few things, go into a certain area, build a few little thingos, and then reap what you sow, technically, is what they say. It does look a little bit complicated to start with, as every single Path of Exile league does, but once we delve into it a little bit, it doesn't seem too bad, and I think by the time you're like into maps, Act 10 or whatever, it's going to be fairly straightforward, and it seems like you're just going to be running into a separate little zone, chucking down a few, I don't know, gizmos, a few plants, and figuring out what you're supposed to do, figuring out how you best want to approach this thing, kill a few monsters, and then potentially get some fat crafting rewards. The league looks like it's kind of billed as a Synthesis 2.0. There's a little bit of mechanical work involved in the old noggin, and then you have to figure out how you best want to approach it and kill a few things and then get lots of mad looting rewards. So it has potential to be some of the most insane crafting out there. Chris Wilson himself says that it will probably break a lot of the current game mechanics, or rather items, loot out there, and invalidate probably plenty of the previous loot, which is similar to Synthesis, but it looks a lot more straightforward than what a Synthesis did for crafting itself, which is a really good thing. Synthesis had some pretty good ideas. It had some fun stuff hidden underneath the layers of bullshit, and once we got to it, you know, it was good. I didn't engage that much in Synthesis crafting because it was a little too unintuitive and complicated, whereas this seems like it should be kind of more straightforward. You pick up the right things and you try and target farm or target craft certain things that you really want to go for, and then hopefully it pays off. And it is in a separate little zone, so you're going to be mapping, you get a separate little zone, you go into it, and then you do your little content for that league, or the Harvest League. So if you really don't like it, you could totally just ignore the Harvest League and do everything else new that they give us, which is usually what the new leagues are about for me, personally anyway. League mechanic is great, it's usually an afterthought. Delirium was pretty impactful though. However, it's usually about the changes that they're giving us. And this time around, there's going to be some two-hand scaling reworks and stuff, some skills are revolved around two-hand attack scaling, and also some brand stuff, which essentially is going to be a whole new little subgenre altogether. The Ziggy has a video up, you know, as always, explaining a decent little bit more about the league mechanic and the changes coming, but something, for example, with the brands, the little rework is that your brands are going to be sort of more like a cast on crit, or more like a totem, where you can kind of attach a certain support and then other spells to it, and all of a sudden your brands will be shitting out all kinds of other spells. So that's going to let you do quite a lot of different things with brands, rather than just play one overpowered type of brand. And what Ziggy's showcasing here is some of the new war cries and supports for melee attacking. And it all looks pretty cool, it all looks pretty exciting. I'm sure there's plenty to sink our teeth into. The only thing that concerns me with the whole brand thing is it really seems like they're trying to just get rid of self-casting as hard as possible, because it's already kind of looked down upon, self-casting. Who does that? Why the fuck would you? And that's even after the self-cast rework like a year ago. And now with brands and turning into other spells and shit, I think it means that you're just going to basically never want to self-cast anything again. I've forced it several times myself, this league, previous leagues and all that, and typically you can get something out of it, but it's far less smooth than just doing something like brands or cast on crit, etc. So that's a bit of a concern, but it's a lot of fun either way. So if you don't really care about the balance of everything and using one versus the other, and you just go for the funnest, most insane shit, great. This seems like it could be a very good league for you. We've got the Harvest League coming in 16 days, just a little bit over 2 weeks. It's going to be here before you know it. It is based around farming. It does look pretty neon and bright. And the last league, current league, Delirium, is very grey and washed out. This is a complete 180, doing the opposite theme, and there's going to be lots of bright colours, lots of crazy shit, and your graphics card will probably be crying out in pain. But there is the new Vulkan system, if you've yet to try it, that's come out as the just as a beta, which is like going to be largely for Path of Exile 2, but in currently the beta, you can use it as well, and it does seem to help a lot. Like I don't know if it's going to help for everyone, but people that do struggle with some frame issues have mostly reported quite a lot of improvements. And if you haven't yet tried it, it's something to look forward to. Even on the beastly rigs like myself, who just upgraded one, you can still have all kinds of stuttering and all kinds of FPS issues on some of the heavy encounters, lots of Beyond, lots of Legion and all of that. And with the Vulkan thing turned on, it's buttery smooth and just out of this world for the gameplay that is Path of Exile. So that's really good. I can't currently use it that much on stream because it's kind of interfering with the way you tab out and all that, and giving these little black screen blips. So I haven't been using it too much, but it is a good thing for most people, I think. But the league itself looks like it'll be a little bit confusing to start with, as all leagues, like I said, do, and it'll probably be a little bit of work to figure out how you want to do things. But I think after the first few acts of leveling, it should be kind of straightforward, and it's just going to be up to seeing how worth it is, and if you can squeeze out some of the really good rewards out of it, because there are some really nice crafts and things that will just let you upgrade your gear to the levels that you couldn't have before. So for example, here's what this thing is going to look like. You'll get these sorts of rewards. You can pick versus some of them versus some others. Augments a rare item with a new physical modifier, for example. You can have a really good sword that's got attack speed, crit, a big flat fizz roll, and a big sort of hybrid fizz roll, for example, and all you need to do is slam on a new roll. It's technically going to be a targeted exalt, right, in this sort of circumstance, and that's really powerful shit. And there's stuff to do with influences, there's going to be stuff to do with sockets, there's all kinds of fun, cool shit coming with this. It's just going to be up to how accessible it is to get the higher grades, the higher powers, and if it's worth doing, stepping outside of your map to go out of your way for this. As I imagine, the first few weeks are going to be a lot of fun, but it may end up being a bit of a grind or a bit of a bore to do this when it's not giving you the quite just rewards you're hoping for. So that's something to keep an eye on, but I think it looks pretty fun. It's not the most hype I've been for a league mechanic ever, but it doesn't look bad by any means. Then got pictures of your, neon meth labs and the new monsters you're going to be fighting. A few little passive tree improvements. They've given us example of one of the timeless jewel notables, timeless jewel keystones that are going to go onto the tree. So that means that they're going to be doing something else with the timeless jewels altogether, but you'll have more options on the passive tree to pick up some of this cool crap. The two-handed reworks, some things that we already know about, like, for example, Tectonic Slam is now going to scale off of your endurance charges for increased area. So if you have 3 endurance charges and you're doing Tectonic Slam, currently you get a nice little boost to area and damage, as long as you keep replenishing those endurance charges. Now, if you get 9 endurance charges and go really ham on it, you get even more area because it'll scale off of those endurance charges. So things like that look pretty damn cool, and there's going to be a few other little additions too. War cries, they've added a few new ones and also going to rework a few of them, which looks pretty damn potentially overpowered. We'll see how that goes, but if they don't change anything to the Berserker and some of the cluster jewels, then it's gonna be freaking insane. But Chris has said that they're not going to remove notable stacking from the cluster jewels. They're just going to alter some of the power of some of these things. So that might include war cries. You'll still be able to stack plenty of various notables and shit like that. And if Berserker isn't changed though, however, it's going to be pretty insane, I think. You got the brands that get to do all kinds of different cool funky shit, attaching different spells, and there's going to be a few new unique items, as well as reworking a bunch of existing ones, which is always good to see, getting the old ones that we loved with a bit of a fresher look, since it has been 7 or 8 years for plenty of them since they've been put into the game, and they're pretty damn irrelevant. Some of them may still end up being pretty damn irrelevant. Wake of Destruction's just a nice little leveling boot. Still is a nice little leveling boot. They've given it a bit of an update with dropped shocked ground while moving, lasting 2 seconds. Cool. Still a kind of nice little leveling boot. That's it, as far as I can tell. You'll then have Delirium added to the core game at probably a rate of about 10%, but the more things you stack, the more potent it'll be, supposedly, something like that. But Delirium and Cluster Jewels are still going to be in the game, and Cluster Jewels are going to drop at a much more accelerated rate, since there's going to be less Delirium in the game. Got the Vulcan Renderer, and the supporter packs. You can go onto my stream's VOD if you really want to check out some of these. My personal opinion on the two is that the darker, lava-ish type supporter pack looks cooler on most characters, and the back, you can work in a lot more back attachments, I think, rather than just the default one if you want to combo some other back attachments. While this one does look pretty cool on a few characters. It's pretty clean, it's pretty crisp. On some characters it doesn't look as good, and also the big stupid wings are kind of big and stupid, and it's, I think, slightly harder to attach a good looking back attachment out of all the ones currently available. But you can check out the VOD if you really are interested in that, and see how we played dress up on that. Overall, I think the League looks pretty interesting, as they always do. It's not the one I'm most hyped for, just out of a mechanic. For example, Delve shows up and I was like, Legion, and I was like, whoa. This shows up and I'm like, what's happening? And it looks pretty cool, I think. And then I listened to Chris with Ziggy talk and I was a bit more convinced of it, just how it's going to work and how it's going to impact the game and your gameplay. So I think it's still going to be a really good, fun time to start with. It's just going to see if it's worth doing for the rewards that they give us, and if it stops your gameplay a bit too much and doesn't add enough. Something like that. So hopefully that's all the info you need from me, and you enjoyed this little video. So thank you very much for watching. See you in Harvest League, and I don't know what my sign off is. Take it easy.